To the viewer question this morning, so government saying it can't afford the public sector workers' demands. A 10% salary increase is what they're demanding. Evident, certainly it was, when SARS placed a 0% increase offer on the table. The Revenue Service also looking at cutting salaries. So what could this look like for public sector and their workers going forward? Dick Forslund from the Alternative Information and Development Centre. Dick, good morning to you. Appreciate your time. So this doesn't look very good for public sector wage workers in the medium to long-term future if already they can't negotiate from a 10% increase, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, good morning to you and the viewers. No, it doesn't look good, but I mean, we should blame the extreme austerity policy of the Treasury, and I would even say of the Treasury and the World Bank, because this is now anchored in a so-called country partnership framework, and basically the Treasury and the government, they are on a trajectory of reducing the size of the public sector as a share of the whole economy, and this is what they are trying now to hit the public sector worker with. But one must understand that there's a lot of difference between the higher paid managers and directors in the public sector and what the salaries and wages and benefits are for the ground staff, for nurses, teachers, doctors, and so on. And I mean, the government 15 years ago, they really made an effort to encourage teachers and professional staff to stay in the public sector, but they didn't budget for tax revenue accordingly, and now they sort of try to cut back, and they still stick to a low tax public sector, and that is impossible. You have to tax the rich, you have to tax the high income earners, and you have to tax the corporations, and you have to clamp down on illicit financial flows and tax evasion and so on. So we must remember also that the public sector workers now in these negotiations, they are trying also to get back sort of what they lost from the wage freeze. So basically they have had a real wage cut since 2020, and that is what is coming back now in these negotiations.
Is there a way out of this, do you think, for the public sector workers from this? Because it seems as though it's a policy framework from Treasury and from government. I don't imagine that this is something that can get changed overnight. How do we go about trying to change how government and how Treasury goes about this? Because we can't have public sector workers not getting paid, not getting increases based on inflation and more, because it wasn't planned for all those years. How do we fix this, if possible?
Well, I think that I would like to see a settlement in the public sector which doesn't increase the wages for the top management directors and so on. I mean, at the SARS negotiations now, which is a key institution, and where you have an incredible austerity policy coming up in the coming 2-3 years. If you look at the budget papers, you have to differentiate between the highest paid in the public sector and the ground staff and those who are effectively driving the operations. So if you look at the wage demands in the SARS, that these wage negotiations, they concern the workers who are paid from group 1 to 6, as it is called. That is what these negotiations is about. And there the average labor cost for these workers, which are about sort of 1,000 people, 1,030 people is planned to be now in this year. There the average labor cost is about 150,000 per year. These are the ones who are hit by this 0%. Well, even even in the budget papers, they are supposed to get a nominal cut of over 3% in this year. But the other groups above that is supposed to get a wage increase.
Yeah.
I looked at the budget papers this morning, and if you would freeze the wages of the top managers, which is about 2,500 employees at the SARS, they are supposed to get a wage increase which cost the SARS about 170 million rand this year, while the group 1 to 6 is supposed to get a nominal wage cut. In reality, with inflation, it will be a real wage cut with over 10%. If you would take this 170 million rand and you would divide it over the workers who are in group 1 to 6, which these negotiations is about, well, then you could put forward a wage demand of over 100%. So that is the situation when it comes to wage inequality, also in the public sector. It's not only Froneman's 300 million rand in the gold sector. It's also, you have exorbitant wages of 1.3, 1.5, 6 million, 7 million, and even above that on the management post in the public sector. And I think that this is how the public sector union should argue, and that is how the SARS should change its wage policy. And I hope that they will bring this up with Commissioner Kieswetter in the negotiations.
And because that's also what we're going to be doing That's also what we're going to be doing as we try and take this conversation forward. You mentioned Kieswetter as well. It's one of the angles we're going to be following up, because I think you made a very good point, Dick. It's those at the top that are still making a lot of the money, while those in this bracket 1 to 6 simply asking for a nominal increase and being told that the companies can't afford that, but the CEOs and the executives getting the very, very big salaries at the top. It's such a good point you make. I appreciate your time. Alternative Information and Development Centre's senior economist Dick Forsland joining us on eNCA.